All right, hey, welcome to Fireside Tats. We're running into a marathon now. This is 3 shows in about what feels like 8 minutes. This is the official podcast of the Tattoo Improvement Network. Go to tattooimprovement.com. Sign up for our mailing list. Really do. Nobody does that. I say it, and people are like, I don't want you to mail me about anything.
Right. Keep out of my mailbox.
Yes, exactly. So we're here with Tim Phelps from, you have to tell me again.
Age of Reason.
Age of Reason Tattoo out of Bowling Green. Tim and I just found out we have a mutual friend, Babak, who I know watches the show from time to time. Hey, Babak.
Hey, guy.
Babak and I worked together at Underground Art, and Babak opened Ronin in Memphis, and Tim actually just left Memphis not long ago, doing a guest spot there. You've been tattooing about how long?
About 11 years.
Okay. And you've been in Bowling Green the whole time?
No. We started out in Bowling Green about 3 years. Moved to Indianapolis and ran a shop for Joshua Carlton, Great American Tattoo Company. Managed a shop for him in Franklin, Indiana, for about a year. Moved to Nashville, opened my first shop, which was a huge failure, and went home and have been doing great since. Everything's great.
What was the issue opening a shop in Nashville?
My poor choices. I chose a terrible location, and otherwise I think Nashville would have been fine. Yeah. But yeah, it was poor business choices.
What year was that? When did you open the shop?
That was 2008. I was open months before Josh and them opened Black 13.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah, and that also kind of coincided with the crash of the economy. I don't know if that had anything to do. I know our tattooing slowed down pretty drastically.
It may have. I don't know. I moved back to Bowling Green, and things picked up pretty good.
Did they?
Yeah.
Was Nashville was it starting to boom? Was it pretty competitive in 2008?
There was a good bit of competition here. I know at the same time that I was looking for real estate to open a shop, there were 2 or 3 other shops looking to open as well. I kept seeing that. So I think it was coming up. It was coming up. You had Chris with Custom Thrills. You had Ben. You had Icon, all these guys that were already here that are established, have been here forever. But I think like since then, around that time, a lot of folks were coming to Nashville.
Seems like it's just really taken off. Every time we come up here, it just seems like there's more going on. We were just talking last night about, you see cranes everywhere now. Yeah. It looks like God, how is this place doing this? And maybe we're 3 hours away in Memphis, and it is like dead. There's nothing going on.
Nashville is huge right now.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Nashville is booming.
Yeah. And obviously because Ink and Iron made the trip across country to put a convention here. So Bowling Green picked up pretty quickly, but because you already had a solid customer base.
I had a support system and a customer base. Yeah, I feel like that helped a lot because that got me started. That started the ball rolling with the shop, and then from there, of course, word of mouth. Carried it on. I've gotten a few really talented artists, John Fowler, Brooke Hume, Justin Webb, Justin Woods. It's Josh Woods' little brother. Yeah, he works at the shop with us. Great crew. So with my work, their work, we're gonna have mostly positive feedback, and that really helps bring people in.
Mostly a custom shop at this point, is it?
Yes. Yes. We don't do flash. We don't have it in the walls. You could bring an image, but we try to do everything as custom as we can.
And I looked at some of your work before we started. It seems like you've got a pretty wide style. I saw some kind of black and gray realism portraits. Saw some more illustrative stuff.
For sure.
Some of your painting it looked like it was also hybrid. Kind of, some of it was more illustrative. Some of it looked like it was a little more realistic.
I just do what I feel. I try not to limit myself. I know too many tattoo artists in the business I feel like they're limiting themselves by focusing on one thing, and just that's what they do. Whenever you can be good at something, but you don't have to be good at one thing. You can diversify, and I think that's the way that all of us are going to grow, is by trying our best to be good at everything.
Yeah. We talked just in our last interview actually a little bit about the perceived need for a lot of young artists in particular to identify themselves with a style really quickly, just to make a name, and how pretty often that's a big mistake because you really haven't established even your basic fundamental tattoo skills, and you're trying to be this neo-traditional tattooer or this new school tattooer. It's like, man, try to tattoo some different stuff, see what you can do.
Key in the beginning is to build fundamentals. After that, I always tell people, traditional things like that are good things to start with because you're going to have to build fundamentals to do those things. After that, you can develop your style. You can play around with different forms of art and build up a style that you think is yours. But fundamentals are key. You have to develop that first.
Yeah. And then that, the thing that I think is that style will come naturally. You make marks a certain way. You won't be able to avoid developing a style if you just continue to work, get your fundamentals down.
As long as you can apply a tattoo cleanly, solidly, everything else is just going to come naturally.
What was we talked a little bit before we started filming about painting. What was your background before tattooing? Were you a painter first?
None. I had been drawing pencils in notebooks since I was a kid. Painting came after tattooing. Okay. Actually, I started tattooing, and then I started picking up painting. I think part of my inspiration for that was probably Jeff Gogway. I think there's a lot of people in this industry that can say that.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you feel like, do you paint a lot?
Sometimes not as much as I should.
Okay. Do you feel like painting has influenced your tattooing?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I paint completely differently than I tattoo, and they both aggravate me. Sometimes I'm doing a tattoo and I'm like, oh man, I wish I could do what I would do with an oil, And then sometimes I'm painting and I'm like, man, I wish I could get this effect that I would get with a tattoo.
Yeah.
But sometimes I have crossed them over, especially with colors, mixing, and palettes. Painting's helped a lot with tattooing.
Yeah. I feel the same way. I feel like if nothing else, I don't tattoo a lot like I paint. I don't know that they're that similar, but one thing that has definitely been affected, my tattooing has definitely been affected by painting, is my comfort with a limited palette, with mixing colors, with being confident that I can recreate a color the next time I work on that piece. That really makes a difference in painting.
Absolutely. Huh? I mean, you can play a lot with painting that you can do a lot of playing and a lot of experimenting that you can't necessarily do with a tattoo. You have to please a client. You have to be kind of careful when you're tattooing. When you're painting, you can let it fly and you can play. And I think that's an opportunity for us to play with values and colors and mixing and just figuring out palettes. Yeah. It's good.
And it's nice to not have to be so deliberate like you have to be in a tattoo.
For sure.
Yeah. As far as running the, I'm bouncing around a little bit, but as far as running the shop, what have you, do you enjoy owning a shop? Is there something to be said for just showing up at work every day and doing tattoos and going home and not having to worry about the books?
Yes and yes. Yeah. I do like having the shop. It's sometimes it's aggravating. Sometimes I think, it might be better off if I was just working for somebody. I could just leave it at the shop and go home. That'd be great. But then I think about it. I think about these 4 guys that are working for me that I've helped to give them a place to earn a living to feed their families, and that feels good.
Yeah,
and I brought 2 apprentices in, that are now both tattooing, doing well. So, and that kind of feels good.
Yeah. Were those the first 2 people you had apprenticed, or have you done a lot of?
I have done a couple, sort of partial apprenticeships. I had a kid up at Great American under Josh. Josh said he knew I was leaving, so he said, "Yeah, go ahead and bring the kid on, and we'll make sure he gets his thing." So I got him started, and then there have been a couple candidates that came in, didn't work out. These are the first 2 that have actually gone through and done everything and are doing well.
Feel like you learned a lot putting 2 people through apprenticeships?
There's no better way to learn than to teach. Especially if you've been doing it for a while, you've been doing anything for a while, things kind of become automatic, And when you're teaching someone, you have to stop and think, why am I doing this? Because either they're asking you questions or you're trying to figure out how to explain, this is why I'm doing this. So you have to kind of go back in your mind and think to yourself, why am I doing this? Why do I do this? And sometimes you're reminded of why, and sometimes you're like, well, why am I not doing this instead? You know, I think it's a really good learning experience teaching.
I bet so. We're working on a product right now, a digital product that's kind of an apprenticeship tool to help mentors with apprentices. And the one thing that I think about a lot, and we've had a few apprentices come through the shop in the last few years. We've probably had more apprentices than we have in the entire time I was tattooing before that. Right. And a lot of these people come in, and they're coming out of art school, and they really they have a very unique way that they work already, and you're trying to make what they do tattooable. And the challenge to me is to not just create a little mini-me, like do everything that I do, but like how to teach them to make their work tattooable, or without kind of taking their voice or taking their mark making away from them.
I have a strange teaching style. I let people watch. I let people ask questions. I try to kind of stay out of their way. You know, I work on fundamentals with people, and then I encourage them to travel and go to conventions, go hang out with other artists. You know, find somebody who's doing what you want to do, somebody who's doing what you like. Go and learn from them. Learn from everyone. You know, that way it's not just me replicated. You know, go and learn from everyone that you possibly can. And plus, the internet these days is a huge resource. It wasn't when I started. You know, there was nothing. And now the internet, you know, videos, websites, what you guys are doing, huge resources for these kids.
Yeah, it really is a different world coming up today. Watching, and you can see it when you look at these kids that have been tattooing for a year or 2 years,
and are just killing it.
Yeah, they're amazing,
killing it.
I was talking in the last interview. People are going to see we're regurgitating this. I'm regurgitating the same information, but we were down podcasting with Russ Abbott a couple of weeks ago, and his apprentice, or I guess he's out of his apprenticeship now. He's tattooing about a year and a half. Clinton Lee. He finished a tattoo. We were going to do a podcast, and it was a super clean little geometric thing on a girl's side, and I was like, man, that's super clean. It looks great. How long have you been tattooing now? Well, I'm officially about 6 months out of my apprenticeship. So are you fucking kidding me?
You just want to quit.
Like, I couldn't have done that 6 years in, man.
Right.
You're like, you are killing it.
Right.
It's amazing. Just and it's exactly what you're saying. It's the first off, it's having a mentor like Russ Abbott in his case, but you know,
and the talent that Russ brings through.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. And so he's good at finding talent, and then you know, it makes sense now for people to go through art school to become tattooers. That was not something that you did before, and you can get on Instagram and be inspired instantly, and like,
absolutely,
it's such a golden age for what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. Whenever MySpace was a new thing whenever I started tattooing, you know, and that was a huge inspiration for me. And before that, it was crusty old tattoo magazines and the tattoo shop shitter. You know, that was my inspiration. It was Bob Terrell and Marshall Bennett and Tom Renshaw and all those cats sitting on the shitter.
Yeah, you know? Exactly.
So
yeah, I was the same way, looking at Tom Renshaw, just being like, God, man, how could anybody do that? And now you see so many people doing that. It's just absolutely amazing.
Yep.
What's the best way to find you to book appointments?
Usually just call the shop. It's Age of Reason Tattoo. It's 270-846-2828. It's the phone number you would call.
They want to look at your portfolio.
Instagram at Tim Phelps Tattoo.
Tim Phelps Tattoo. What else? We miss anything? Sweet man. Thanks. I appreciate it.
No problem, man.
Cool.
Absolutely.